Today on American Land Seller, we are joined by a friend of mine, Jeff Garrett from Wyoming. He is originally from Alliance, Nebraska, and can claim several generations of cattle producers in his family. He and his wife now own a cattle operation east of Cheyenne, where they raise their 4 children, Macie, Tripp, Wade, and Bridger. He has a Bachelor of Arts in Business Administration and minors in Agribusiness, Animal Science, and Ag Management. He's also a member of the Nebraska Cattlemen Association, the Colorado Livestock Association, and the Wyoming Stock Growers Association. Jeff serves as a member director of the Wyoming RLI chapter, as well as Wyoming FFA Foundation Board of Trustees. After spending 12 years doing all kinds of other things, Jeff decided to take his talents to the next level. He has contacts with farmers and ranchers all over the country and a real-world view of what it takes to make an operation work in today's economy. Stewardship of the land is so important to Jeff. His aim is to teach his children a strong work ethic and a value of self-reliance. He is proud to bring these things to all of his clients. When not selling real estate, Jeff loves to spend time with his family at the lake in the summer and in the mountains in the fall. He also enjoys team roping as well as training young horses. Whether you're buying or selling, you'll find Jeff's experience and commitment to traditional Western values a tremendous asset. Hello everyone, my name is Koby Rickardson and welcome to the American Land Seller Podcast. We are so excited you decided to join us today on our journey to discover new and interesting things about everything land, from sales, investments, ownership, regulations, and so much more. Our mission is to connect you to the top folks in the country where it has to do with land so we can learn more about everything from agriculture to land development.
Okay, Koby and our special guests, let's get started.
Hey everybody, welcome back to number 5 podcast of the American Land Seller. We are super excited to have Jeff Garrett from Ranch and Recreational Properties. They're a sister company to Number One Properties, which I think actually is probably one of the top residential real estate companies in the state of Wyoming. I know, Jeff, we're so happy to have you here today. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Koby. I appreciate you allowing me the opportunity to get on here and shoot the breeze with you a little bit.
Yeah, no, I think it'll be fun. So far, we've had a pretty good time with these podcasts. It's been interesting to get everything set up. It seems like as we go, I'm testing microphones and stuff like that. But so far, so good. We've had some fun with it and had a halfway decent product. So just to get into a little bit with you, sir, I know like it's, I don't know like how you got started. Like what was your origin story getting into real estate?
Sure. So I'm originally from Alliance, Nebraska, right there in the Panhandle. Grew up, come from a long line of ag producing families. Right there, all kind of around the Shadron, Crawford, Alliance area, down in Sand Hills.
Sure.
Went to college my first year at the University of Wyoming for mechanical engineering and decided that wasn't a great fit for me, so I went to Shadron State College for the rest of my undergrad and the MBA program there. When I got out, I was just riding colts and day work and stuff like that, and got an opportunity to work for an animal health distribution company. Did that for about 4 years, I believe. Traveled around to ranches, feed yards, vet clinics, all that stuff. And then I moved into a manufacturing company, worked for Mariel and then Behringer Ingelheim after that. Went through several mergers there, so that was about a 12-year career. And then, just kind of morphed into this, and, real estate, and especially the ranch real estate deal was one of the best fits for the book of business or the clientele list that I'd spent the last 12 years building up on. And man, it's been a fun ride here the last several years.
Yeah, you guys have kind of come out of nowhere and become probably one of the top marketing land companies in the Panhandle and Wyoming. like we technically, I would say, are competitors. So, I would really, those of you listening looking to wanting to sell something, I would hope you'd interview both Jeff and I. But I'm also, I'm a huge, I always, my wife laughs. She said, if there were real estate agent trading cards, I would have the whole collection, and that's true. I just kind of love following guys that are doing it right and really taking care of their properties. So, Jeff, one of the things I can say about you guys with Ranch and Recreation are your marketing is probably one of the top things going on in our area. Your property, the designing and things like that. Can you talk just a little bit about how, why that's so important to you guys, and how do you get the top quality materials? Like your website's top notch, your marketing materials that you hand to people are top notch. Can you just kind of talk about, first of all, why is that important, and then second of all, how are you guys getting that done?
You bet. That's going to make a lot of people real happy to hear, namely Holly. She
you better pay her well, bud.
Yeah. She keeps beating me up about how important it is, and brand recognition and all that stuff. So I guess backing up a little bit, so Number One Properties, the parent company, was started in 1984. Larry and Kim Sutherland, who are still the managing brokers at the parent company here. So when I come on, I wanted to focus on farm and ranch, actual ag producing ground, and bigger tracts property. So they'd kind of dabbled. They dang sure sold some ranches. They had some folks that sold ranches and farms before, but it hadn't been a driving focus. So I guess, when I started in the real estate deal, I looked at a few other brokerages, interviewed with them, and the marketing piece was the most impressive piece, and just Larry and Kim as people. They're just great people. So we've got a full-time dedicated marketing staff. I think there is 6 girls over there, and they're in their own building, and that is all they do. They've got a printer that's 12 foot long. It's monstrous. So we do a lot of our stuff. Most everything's in-house. We've got graphic designers, all sorts of stuff just kind of on staff, and they do a fantastic job. Holly, Allison, who you've met several times,
yep.
She also has stepped into a little bit of a marketing role. She does a bunch of our Facebook management,
sure,
and Instagram and all that kind of stuff for us. And I just think that the way things are going, we're getting away from people reading the newspaper. I don't even know if TV advertisement's going to be a thing here, before too long, with all the streaming and all that. But having it on the web, and there's been good studies saying that, and I'm not going to try to recite the facts here right today because I would be wrong, but how many times somebody has looked at the property before they ever contact anybody or set boots on the ground. Right. Just the internet and social media as a whole has kind of revolutionized this market, and it's a changing landscape every day. It's hard to keep up with.
Right. Yeah, it's I had Kevin May. I don't know if you know Kevin or not, but Kevin May, he's the owner and president of Land Hub, on the earlier podcast, and we were talking about how how expensive it is to market land and farm and ranches and things like that, just because all of the websites, all of the stuff that we have to put the stuff on is excruciatingly expensive, and so how do you decide, you've been doing the land stuff a couple years longer than I have, so you're a little bit ahead of me on some of this, but how do you decide what's important to focus on when you're marketing a property? Let's say I know you're a big ranch guy, grew up on ranches, you're a multi-generational ranch family. But how do you, when you're going into a ranch, I think it'd be kind of interesting to know what's the process for you when you're first of all pricing it and then looking at your marketing.
So pricing in Nebraska is quite a little easier than it is in Wyoming. Wyoming's a non-disclosure state. So there's some resources, in Nebraska you can get on the county websites, the county assessor websites, and look up comps. And then, so I will go in and look at sold data kind of in the area on a target property I'm looking at. And then I also go to all the main websites and see what's out there, what's listed out there. The last 3 years have been just a totally freak market with COVID and people wanting to get out of the urban sprawl and get into rural areas and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
And so there's been a little bit of a fudge factor on pricing. You can't just go off historical data. So something that sold in 19, you couldn't really even use it for a comp in 21. Right. We just kind of take a blend. And at the end of the day, as you well know, listing price is determined by the seller. So we try to give them a guideline or a parameter and say, here's the range that we think it fits in. But at the end of the day, it's their call. As far as going through the process, when I go to a place, if somebody wants to list it, there's just so many factors, and that's why I think, like you and I have talked many times, the education's paramount.
Yeah.
Does it have irrigation for one? And that's a fairly easy question to answer, but okay, if it does, is it pivot irrigated? Is it a side roll? Is it flood? Are they using tubes? They tarp and dam? And if it does have equipment on it, what's the age and the condition of the equipment? Does it have a field net system? All that kind of stuff. You've got to take into account not only the equipment, but the soil types, the potential productivity. If we're talking pasture, you're looking at what's the stocking rate, how many acres is it going to take to carry an animal through a year or a 6-month grazing season. So we take all those factors into account. Then you throw in the recreational value, which is the pie in the sky number. That's the hardest for me to figure out. If it's got trees on it, your price goes up. If it's got elk, especially in Wyoming, price goes way up. If it's got big deer, live water, all those things. There's just a litany of things that we've got to look at, and so that's why it's not as easy as pricing a house. You can't go into a neighborhood and because there's no two ranches that are the same. Right. You might have a $200 an acre discrepancy amongst neighboring ranches.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right there. There's I like to think of it. I know that the two sides, the recreational or the residential and the land guys, a lot of times, especially in our areas, they kind of look at it like each other's job is easy, and I kind of think of it as just a different approach. Let's pick up on this after the break, Jeff. I think this is a good time to take a break, and we will be right back. Today's episode is brought to you by Remax Home Farm and Ranch. Remax Home Farm and Ranch is the premier marketing and selling real estate company in Nebraska and South Dakota. You can find all the great Remax agents and their listings at homefarmranch.com. That's homefarmranch.com. You can look up and see what they're up to and follow along on all the things that they have going on. Once again, this episode is brought to you by Remax Home Farm and Ranch, and you can find their listings and their agents at homefarmranch.com. Once again, homefarmranch.com. Hey everybody, welcome back to the American Land Seller. We're here again with Jeff Garrett from Number One Properties' sister company, Ranch and Recreation. He is, again, vastly becoming the top guy in definitely eastern Wyoming, western Nebraska when it comes to selling ranches, farm ground, things like that. So we're happy to have him on the show. Jeff, we were kind of talking before the break about when you're going out listing a ranch, and I know that's kind of your historic expertise. So I'm going to kind of key into that a little bit. When you're going out and looking at it, I think a lot of people think we can just look at it on a map. We can say, okay, it's 10,000 acres and ranches have been selling this much per acre. But there's a lot more to it than that. Am I correct? I mean, when you go out there and look, you're going to have to put boots on the ground and say, yeah, this is what we're dealing with.
For sure. And especially, where all of us that are selling land, we cover such a big area. It's kind of unrealistic for us to think that we're going to be the expert over, when we're covering entire states. So getting out to the place, seeing the actual condition of the ground is huge. The other thing is, I am not afraid to tell somebody that I don't know, but I'm guarantee you I'm going to find the neighbors around and ask them, and they're going to be the ones that'll tell you. So, you go from Lincoln, Nebraska with a carrying rate, you might be able to run a cow there for the summer on 5 to 7 acres, where you get to north of Rawlins to where you're going to need 60 acres.
Right.
It's just such a vast difference, and it titrates down, and there's little pockets within all those areas too. And, the same, it's not just carrying capacity, it's crop production. And with all of those different variations of productivity comes a change in price. So I think it's paramount to try to know your market, to get at the place, to, that's my least favorite thing is when you get somebody call and they say, "Hey, Koby, I got a ranch south of McCook. What's it worth?" You're like, "Yeah, I don't really want to do that. Let me get out there and we'll go take a peek at it and see." But yeah, I guess that's our approach.
Yeah,
sorry about that.
No, that's exactly right. I think that's a good approach to have. But I totally agree with you. You have to go look at what you're dealing with, especially out there. Like I kind of grew up on a farm. We had some cows too, but our mainstay was farming. And so I know, like even in the Panhandle, you go out there, if they've run beets, if they've raised beets on it, that those beets, that's a huge draw from the resources in the ground. And so I know it's really tempting to go for the big rent per acre that they pay. But then again, you got to also, hey, how long is it going to take for me to get the nutrients back in the ground so that I can, that it's good for raising corn, soybeans, other stuff that's available out there. So yeah, definitely we want to get, the boots on the ground. So that's a great point. Like with the drought that's been going on, I can, like I've always been one growing up as a producer that I've not been a big fan of property management. I don't know, like, I don't think your company's really big into that yet. But I can definitely, I'm just curious seeing like what you're seeing. I can definitely see a need for somebody paying attention to, grazing and stuff like that with the drought that's been going on. Cause there's been some grass that have been, eaten right down to the sand basically from where you're from. Is that something you've seen? And if so, that does make a huge difference on what your land's worth when you're talking ranch, right?
For sure. Yeah. And, this last year has been rough on everybody. Traditionally we'd say if somebody overgrazes their stuff that, they're, not a top tier producer or whatnot. This last year, about everybody had to, just because it was terrible. The benefit that we have, and I think it really helps, both Holly and I both currently run cows. We have, our own ag operations. And so it's just nice to be able to relate back to your producers. When we're talking to somebody, we can say, yeah, we've had, we only had 3 inches of rain from this day to this day or whatever. And we get the struggles that, you're having to ship in alfalfa at $320 a ton or whatnot. So that's been a help for us, and allowing you to kind of have a common ground with them and be able to relate to the struggles. But it also helps that we can, when we go out and look at a place, you can relate to that buyer and say, all right, here's the deal. This place doesn't look very good right now, and I get that it's overgrazed. It's got, these types of grasses in it that are going to be, or this type of soil that's going to be a little more forgiving. Here's kind of what we would recommend. Granted, we're not the extension experts or whatever, and we'd be happy to get them in here and have them visit with you about that as well. But this is kind of what I would do if I were to buy it. Rest this pasture. Let's start here, kind of set it up on a rotational plan, or, maybe let it have a certain pastures that are hit the worst, have a little bit of rest, things like that. So there's ways around it, but yeah, there's a dang sure a lot of areas, or a lot of ranches in the area that we cover that were pretty well decimated this year.
Yeah. Now, I don't know. I'm sure it's all going to come back out of it, but it's just I just can see that it's desperate. Like you said, it's pretty desperate times. It's not that people are, I think, intentionally trying to take advantage of stuff. It's just where we're going to go with them, Yeah. And so, been kind of an interesting couple of years for sure. So Jeff, you're going out. You've got the listing. You're going to take your team out and do your get everything ready for marketing. What's a photo shoot look like for you guys? Because like I always laugh. I say when I go list farms, maybe not so much like a quarter, but if you go list a lot of pasture, I always say you're going to be out there for probably a couple days with a few people. What's that look like for you guys?
Yep. So I'm sure it looks kind of intense when we show up. So like the last one we did, we had Holly, myself, and our photographer. We got there middle of the afternoon, try to get a lay of the land a little bit, and try to get some of those twilight shots that always look cool in your marketing stuff. So we had three of us. Yeah. We had a professional photographer. This is what he does full time every day. Got a great eye. And then we've got a couple guys that we've been using here lately that also have just an intense interest in the outdoors. Love to hunt, fish, take nature photos, all that kind of stuff. And so it's nice to see their excitement as well, to where they want to jump out, or they say, whoa, stop, let's go take a picture of this, or go sit in a tree stand for 2 hours trying to get a picture of a deer. But we show up, the three of us. I've got a Polaris Crew Cab Ranger. So we've got GoPro mounts on it. So we got, somewhere like 4 or 5 cameras, 3 drones, couple GoPros. And so then we'll stay there, stay the night. We shoot that day, stay the night, go back the next day, try to get morning shots, try to get anything else that you missed, and try to get a bunch of B-roll stuff for when we're building promotional videos. I'm sounding way smarter than I am on the technical side of things right now. I pretty much leave this up to Holly tells me what to do. But we try to make sure that we have more than enough collateral that we'd ever use. And then we can go in, and when we have somebody build us a video, then they can select what they think's going to fit best. When we go build our brochures, we might have 5 of the same picture, but the light's just a touch different. So when we put out these products to the public, we want our sellers to know that we've invested not only, money, but a great deal of thought and time into making their property look as absolutely best as we can when it goes out to the public.
Yeah, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think bad pictures, I don't know, it'd be an interesting study to see, if you could see what a property would market at with good pictures, good professional quality photos versus kind of crappy iPhone photos. I think it'd be dramatic.
Well, I mean, we've talked about this in the past where, like the difference between somebody that's, like I think there's a big, I don't know, disconnect or hostility a little bit between the older guard of the way that we used to sell stuff and the newer, more guard and like I get accused of trying to find, people from outside the area, and, to come in and buy property, because of the way we market. You
Sure.
laugh, but so you've heard that too. But again, but I can honestly go to one of the sellers that I'm working with and say, I feel like, me broadcasting this all over the world, and getting a bunch of interest in it from, creates more value in your property, whereas just marketing it to the neighbors and whoever goes to your particular website, that's, that I don't know that that's getting the best value for the property. So,
Yeah, I would totally agree. I mean, our job as a realtor, we have a fiduciary responsibility to our sellers, and that responsibility is to get them the highest price possible for their property and close under terms that they're willing to accept. So in my mind, that means we've got to get it out to the biggest audience possible, make sure anybody that is a potential buyer in that market, we're going to do our dangest to make sure they know that that property is available. And, the internet, we think that it's easy now, but shoot, just like we talked before, how many different websites do we advertise on, and Facebook and Instagram and all the social stuff that we're trying to do. Plus, that's on top of our company websites and ROI and all those different things, and sending out postcards. And, I guess we've got a targeted approach on the websites and the avenues that we think work, but it's not, there is hundreds of different avenues that we take with each property.
Yeah.
And there's some of them, we started advertising on horseproperties.net. I didn't know
that's a good one.
Any traction on that. And then I just went to a listing appointment the other day, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that's where we got your contact information."
Yeah.
So it just takes a little time, and then, I'm sure there'll be 5 more websites that Holly thinks we need to advertise on tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, let's take another break here, Jeff. I appreciate your knowledge on some of this stuff. I am always learning. So, I think it speaks volumes for you and your team that you're willing to sit down with us and just kind of share what you have going on. We'll continue. You got one more segment in you, brother?
You bet.
All right. We will be right back after the break. Today's episode is brought to you by Remax Home Farm and Ranch. Remax Home Farm and Ranch is the premier marketing and selling real estate company in Nebraska and South Dakota. You can find all the great Remax agents and their listings at homefarmranch.com. That's homefarmranch.com. You can look up and see what they're up to and follow along on all the things that they have going on. Once again, this episode is brought to you by Remax Home Farm and Ranch, and you can find their listings and their agents at homefarmranch.com. Once again, homefarmranch.com. Hey, Jeff, welcome back. Again, we're here with Jeff Garrett. He's one of the top, I think you are the top land seller right now, right? With Ranch and Recreation? Probably.
Yeah, I would say within our company at the moment. I mean, we've got some big-time producing agents that are on the residential and commercial side. From the ranch side, though, yeah, we're it's been a good couple years here.
Yeah, I think number one properties, not only is it, I think, the actual largest real estate company in Wyoming. I think maybe independently owned real estate company in Wyoming, but I think it's one of the top independent real estate companies in the country, if I'm not wrong. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, the last numbers I saw there was 68,000 independent brokerages across the country, and we were 588 on that list. The cool part about that is this company, Number One Properties as a whole, traditionally only operated in a couple counties in the state of Wyoming. That's pretty powerful, and we're not in a big metropolitan area like Denver.
Yeah.
So the founders, the they're still here in the managing brokers have done an excellent job and built a really awesome culture. I mean, it's a family-oriented kind of business model that they've built here, and I think people respect that and stick around. They've got agents here that have been with them since day one, and we just welcomed a new one on yesterday.
You got I've talked to the Remax guys out in Cheyenne, and they definitely have lots of good things to say about number one properties. So that's really, really cool. Working, we have very similar, but I guess I have a little smaller world, but very similar paths that we have in the sense of we both kind of work with a lot of recreational or real residential specialists in the industry. I know in our company we have some of the top people in the areas that they work right now. But that brings us to, we've done the education, Jeff. We've taken the initiative I'm not just a producer that decided to sell real estate one day. I understood when I started doing it, as you did, that, there's more to it than just, like running cows on stuff or planting and harvesting crops. Can you talk to, I just like to have kind of your feedback on, I've always been preaching that if you're going to sell land, you need to know land. Sure. As a real estate agent, not just as a producer, or just getting your license doesn't mean you're ready to go sell big tracts of land. Just love to know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I agree. My opinion through the licensing process is they teach you the bare bones basics about it. But most of the folks coming through those classes are going to be a residential specialist. So the land deal, you're kind of on your own a little bit. And if you want to do the best job, I fully agree that, education is paramount, and that can come from many forms. That's finding you a mentor that has done it, that knows it. I was lucky enough when I started here, we had a gal that had sold some big ranches and could kind of walk me through the pitfalls. Just the extra addendums and things that you got to think about, whether they transfer or they don't, little things like that. And then I was encouraged from the founders here to join RLI, the Realtors Land Institute, which I did right after I started, and immediately started working on my ALC accreditation. One class from finishing that, we're going to get that done here last summer, and then we had some family stuff going on that just made it a little tough. But we'll have that done. I think RLI is a great source of knowledge. They've got the classes for us, obviously.
Yes.
We've got the land conference coming up here in Denver in March.
Yeah.
So that'll be a great networking opportunity. And then just all the folks that I've met there. I was talking to one last night, and, you got a question, and most of the folks that I spoke with, I say, hey, I'm running into this. I've never dealt with this before. What's your opinion? How'd you handle this? Everybody's been great to work with. And so just building that camaraderie with people that are doing the same thing, it's just nice to have somebody to bounce ideas off of. And that ALC accreditation is going to be pretty cool, because there's something like, only 1,200 in the United States with that?
The ALC, the accredited land consultant?
Yes, sir.
I think less than 1,000 still.
Okay.
Last I knew, it was, last year at the land conference, there was only 580, and I don't think they quite have 100 yet this year. So,
gotcha.
But yeah, it's a very small community. I tell you what, even when you're done, I submitted my packet with everything complete in September. And I've gone back and forth with questions. We've had to swap out properties. I think that it's been one of the toughest things that I've done. So fingers crossed, everything is going to the board for me for the March meeting, and hopefully at the land conference they'll let me have my accredited land consultant designation. That there's, I don't know. There's a lot of designations you can get in our world. But that has by far been, that's been tougher almost than getting my real estate license, all honesty. So
it's a big commitment. And I think that, the way that benefits your clients, I mean, you can go to them and say, hey, I've done all of these steps to get this accreditation in an effort to be able to better serve you. I think that's a pretty powerful message. Some of these others where you can take a Zoom class for a day and get some letters behind your name, maybe not as powerful as one that takes, some people a year or years to accomplish, because then there's also a production requirement that you have to hit. You can't just take the classes and take the test and get it. You've got to be a producer as well. So I think the ALC accreditation is a really neat deal. And like I said, the folks within the organization itself, and then the continuing ed, they've got one on renewable energy. They've had classes on carbon credits. There's education all the time, and that's what we try to let people know that, hey, we are trying to educate ourselves to be the experts in the field, but we're obviously not going to know everything. And so I'm never afraid to tell somebody, it's like we said earlier, I don't know the answer to that, but I know how to get the answer, and I'll get back to you. So just continuing on that track, I think, is just going to be paramount for the success and the longevity of a career and a business and all that.
Yeah. Well, and I think not only that, but when you say if you don't know the answer, you'll find out. A lot of times finding out is calling Justin Osborne down in southern Colorado, or calling you, or calling, calling Jeff Moon from Ag West, like a lot of times. And the funny thing about it is, I don't even think it's funny. It's a fantastic thing about it is those guys pick up the phone and most of the time if they don't have the time, they'll say, call you back. But they have the time to say, I saw this here. This is what we did, and again, like my attitude is that I love a lot of the competition because it makes our industry better. I think if you're talking to somebody in this industry that says, oh, I don't like them, they're, that Koby, he doesn't know what he's doing, or he's blah, 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 or that Jeff Garrett, he's the flashy one, but he doesn't, I think if you have that attitude, you're not, iron is not sharpening iron with that attitude, right? But when I look at what you guys are doing with your company, your website, your stuff, I'm like, man, I have to step up my game. And then I look at like Jeff and his growth and what he's doing with Ag West, and I'm like, man, this guy's got some phenomenal stuff that he's doing. I got to figure out, how to compete with that and then, and there's stuff I know people look at me and, they're saying, hey, Koby did this, like we really kind of got to, like, how do we make this our own and do it? So no, it's a great, that's the one thing I can say about it is it's a breath of fresh air for our industry, because these people, it is the trade first, it is the client first, it is the celebration of awesomeness and greatness. That's brings a whole bunch of people together. And I'm going to go see a bunch of friends. You are too. We're going to go see a bunch of our friends next month. It's not like going to the Remax conference or the realtor stuff. It's a small community, and we're going to go see a bunch of our buddies. So, what if you were going to give some advice, Jeff, to somebody that's maybe getting out of college or maybe getting out of high school, and then they're thinking about, hey, I'd like to get into the real estate business. What little nugget of knowledge would you tell your younger self or to a young person getting into the industry?
So I think the biggest thing is just building up your database, and I guess the biggest thing is having a work ethic. I'm going to step back here for a second. You've got to get out of bed in the morning and get after it. That's the hard part, and the good part about real estate is there is no set hours. People want to talk to you at 8, 9 o'clock at night. Some want to talk at 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, on the weekends, whatever. So it allows you some flexibility. But, I guess my goal has just been to out hustle everybody else. And constantly moving, trying to think of, new ways to market. We look at all of your guys' stuff. We're Facebook friends with all the other brokers.
Yep, absolutely.
Imitation's the highest form of flattery. So just try to learn everything you can and, building up that database and getting out in front of people. We were talking the other day that if you want to be in the ag sector, go to the sale barns, go to the feed yards, go to the coffee shops, go to, all those sort of places and get in front of your target audience. Because the chances that somebody's going to call your office and say, hey, I saw an ad in the newspaper for your company. I want you to sell my $20 million rancher is pretty slim. So that's the biggest one, is just getting out in front of folks and being honest and kind of having the integrity behind your business and your name.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I would say that there's about probably 10% of our industry, unfortunately, that really is reaching beyond themselves every day and trying to become, do greater. And then there's the ones that they look at the glamorous stuff that's going on with social media, with real estate agents, and they think that's the life I want. And, they're not really in it for the craft, And
Sure.
So that's something that we just have to continue to beat our drum on, I think. And I tell my guys that all the time. Be honest on your social media. You don't have to run people into the ground, but you can tell the truth of, I would like to just be one of 3 or 4 people you interview. That would be great. If you don't like me, fine, but you should at least sit, like your cousin Debbie, who got her license 2 months ago and still is a barista at the coffee shop. What kind of horsepower she got behind her? That's what I would ask. I don't mind giving Debbie a shot, but whose shadow is she standing in while she gets going? So.
Yep.
But man, I tell you what, it has been incredible having you on. It always makes my heart happy when my competition agrees to join me for a conversation. And I hope you do share this with your friends. And again, like, my vision, as I've said before, is, if you got somebody that you want to interview, we have kind of the system set up. We can just put this on and you do the interview and then we polish it up and put it out. I'm not the American land seller. I'm just one of them. And I think it's going to be fun if we can get everybody to help tell that story going forward, So.
Absolutely. I appreciate the invitation. This was fun and a lot less scary than I originally anticipated.
You're a little nervous about whether or not I was going to beat you down while we got you on here, huh?
Yeah.
No, but anyway, brother, appreciate you being on, and everybody else, we will see you all down the road. You have been listening to the American Land Seller Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us this week for our program, and we promise to continue to try and find new, exciting, and informative things to discuss every single time. If you would be so kind, please like, subscribe, or follow whatever works on the app you're listening or watching on. We would love for you to keep track of what we're up to. Thanks again, and until next time, God bless you. Have a great week. Today's episode is brought to you by RE/MAX Home Farm and Ranch. RE/MAX Home Farm and Ranch is the premier marketing and selling real estate company in Nebraska and South Dakota. You can find all the great RE/MAX agents and their listings at homefarmranch.com. That's homefarmranch.com. You can look up and see what they're up to and follow along on all the things that they have going on. Once again, this episode is brought to you by RE/MAX Home Farm and Ranch, and you can find their listings and their agents at homefarmranch.com. Once again, homefarmranch.com.